Hello, and welcome to another video. In this video, we're playing Innovative Ordnance, or Assault Specialist for Commando. In this video, I don't actually take that much damage, but it is a good video to kind of explain how IO plays, and not necessarily how you have to position. Obviously, you're going to position differently, but the reason why I position the way I do is to make sure that I can always channel, but also at the same time, it makes it a little bit harder for people to obviously just target right off the rip. I don't really know where this guy was going or what his plan was, but that's fine for me. And then, you know, people stack up here, so I use my AoE fusion missile. I get a 2-man spread. I thought I was going to get 3-man, but in reality, it doesn't matter too much. So basically what you want to be doing as IO, I do have a guide for this, so definitely check that out if you are more curious. You can do different openers, but for example, a TLDR, kind of like how it works is that your number 4, which is serrated shot, is a dot, and then my Q, which is incendiary missile, is your other dot. Incendiary missile is one of your more important dots. Serrated shot is white damage and can be dodged. Once you have both of those dots on somebody, you can then use like fusion missile to AoE spread it if people are around the main target. Then you also have a dot that's tied to your thermal grenade. It's very, very weak. It's not like super great, but you know, hey, extra dot. You have it at extra dot tied to your auto attack. It's relatively weak too, but you know, hey, your auto attack is actually very good. And then you also have supercharged gas, and that's the most important dot. And in order to get the supercharged gas to burn somebody, you have to have incendiary missile on the target. And it is okay to, you know, completely tab target and hit somebody else if they have incendiary on them, or if you put incendiary, then burn them too. There's quite a bit of damage there. You don't get to see me to do that very often, especially not in this match, mostly just because people are just dying so fast. Like I could try to get it on the operative there, but he's still popping like evasion, so it's whatever, just focusing on single target. But it's definitely something that you should learn. Not necessarily is it worth to like just tab and use incendiary missile and then auto attack on people. It's more so if it's convenient. You can end up chasing too much for like dots and whatnot on this spec, and I highly recommend just not doing that. It's kind of like how engineering is. If you chase too much for your incendiary grenade to stun people, or your whatever, the AoE for engineering, I can't remember what it's called. If you chase that too much, you're really wasting what you could be doing because your single target is pretty good. Here's a perfect example where I get both dots off and then I spread, and because I have all my priority up, I'm preferring to do my burst. Had I not gotten stunned, I probably would have followed into, you know, putting a auto attack into the other 2 people that got spread on, so I could get a burn on them. Unfortunately, sometimes you just get opened up on, and I have to deal with it. This class, or not this class, but I guess this spec specifically, unload is actually not like a great ability. Most of the time you're going to be relying on power shot. Power shot's a huge part of your rotation. Power shot's going to be used a lot. If you're able to like free cast like PvE person somebody, you're going to be using power shot so much so that it's going to be like, if not your top damage, one of your top damages. Obviously your dots are probably going to be your top damage because, you know, you get some AoE and those dots will go crazy. I was hoping the healers would have gone a little bit closer to that so I could get the AoE fusion missile on them too, but it's totally fine. I am running the AoE thermal detonator. You can take the thermal detonator, it makes it do more damage, but when it doesn't crit, the damage is pretty much the same, so therefore the AoE variant I prefer. And then there's increased dot damage one. That one is not worth taking. The only reason I say that is because the dot on thermal is already bad, and increasing it by 30% doesn't make bad suddenly good. So take that with a grain of salt, and definitely check out the AoE one. It's a lot nicer. You can get the AoE applied from thermal, which is another reason why it's really good to have the AoE one. And then, you know, even if you only hit 2 targets, chances are you're doing comparable damage to the one that amplifies, damage turns into kinetic instead of elemental. Outside of obviously if it crits. And if it was to crit, if you hit a couple more people, you pretty much get the same amount of damage. So I see pretty much no reason to ever take anything outside of the AoE thermal. And to get into kind of like what I'm doing, this guy just dodged my straight shot, so as I said, it's very, very dodgeable. Sucks. I was hoping that, with how much movement is in this game, since there is predation, maybe people would have stacked onto that and get that spread, but it's whatever. Sometimes you're just gonna have to take the L. It's a very weird war zone, where just things are just really weird overall. I'm just trying to stay on the move to make it so I'm not a sitting duck and I don't get outnumbered by people. Because if I get outnumbered by people, there's not much I can do. I can hit defensives and I can survive, but IO is incredibly easy to interrupt. So if you're ever playing against like a decent IO player, really all you have to do is interrupt power shot. Straight shot's fine. I mean, if you have defense chance, straight, you can just completely let it go. Chances are they might miss it anyway, and the only time that you really want to worry about using a defensive slash, maybe like CCing them or like relieving to them to interrupt them, is when they throw thermal at you. That's where the damage is going to be coming from. So, mad dash, thermal, maybe they'll mag shot you as you mad dash. Then you don't have to worry about it. And then, outside of like interrupting, obviously you can just kick power shot, and you can leap interrupt too if you're playing like a melee, which is pretty nice. So that really leaves, if they get power shot interrupted, that really only leaves unload, and unload is very heat hungry, and they'll probably end up using it anyway because it's one of the only abilities that they have on the move. And then Electronet is also a decent amount of damage that adds to their DPS. So if you find yourself netted by them, obviously the damage is gonna hurt. Like they have a relatively big spike of damage and net, because you're getting the net damage and you're getting the dot damage, and then also that means that they channel on you because you're probably not going to be able to reach them to interrupt them. That's where they are definitely the most scary, especially when they have supercharged burn. Or supercharged gas for the supercharged burn. That ability hurts really bad. Even if you're a .dr spec, that burn hurts a lot. I don't know if it's bypassing the .dr, but it is a very, very strong dot. I think it's one of the strongest dots in the game next to Force Rend. Then if you guys are curious about how to use your defenses and whatnot, I do have a guide on it on... and I have a whole playlist that I recently posted in the community tab, but also the playlist is just called Guides. You can check it out on my main channel, or not my main channel, but the main homepage, it's there. But I do have a defensive guide for 4v4 and 8v8. I highly recommend checking that out if you guys are curious about how to use your defenses, but generally it's the lowest cooldown first, so ideally, like, using, I think it's called Chaff Flare. That would be my button on the dash right next to 1. That ability gives me defense chance on IO, at least if I remember correctly. I can't remember if they made it universal defense chance or if they made it universal as orb. I think it's defense chance. It's pretty good, right? That'd be the first thing that you'd usually pop, and then you would go for shield. This would be your lowest cooldown abilities, and then you have longer cooldowns like Reflect into Kolto. Kolto will be your longest cooldown, and usually the thing that you use last, but Reflect sometimes will supersede all of your defenses, because if you get in a really bad situation and people are hitting you, or multiple people are hitting you, or there's a heavy burst coming in, it's much better to just use your Reflect, as Reflect's on a crazy long cooldown, and you don't get much value out of like the defense chances. There's just a whole bunch of people on you, but you also don't get much value out of Kolto if a lot of people's on you, because Kolto only really works once it gets wind up time. Kolto needs time to, get going. And on top of that, you don't have any damage reduction to tie it with, so you need to be using your general with your cold toe, so you don't die through your cold toe. And then, ultimately, Energy Shield is your main source of damage reduction. If you have any questions about IO or just in general, like anything, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help.